growth therapy. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you sound great. I think sometimes I get really loud on my mic, so I need to like relax. I get really excited.
When you get excited, yep.
When I get so, especially with Danny. Danny just makes me like scream. I don't know what it is.
Same. Not in
Like
that way, but you know.
Right. Same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can even talk about, Danny's like he's like my astrologer boo, so.
Yeah, he's now all of our Astro Daddy is what we like to call him now.
Astro Daddy, right.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Hey guys, it's me, Stefanie Maegan, your host of Broco Therapy. And guess the fuck what? We have the most amazing and fabulous dating and relationship coach expert, keyword on the expert, because none of us are experts on the show, but she is, so this is amazing. Damona Hoffman. Hello.
Hey. I'm like, is anyone an expert? I don't know, but I've been doing this a long time, Stephanie. I've been doing this over 15 years, so I guess I've earned it.
You've earned it, yeah. So how did you get into this, and what made you really like just gravitate towards like helping other people and, making this a career?
Of course it was by accident. I don't think any dating experts are like, this is what I studied in school, and now I want to help people find love.
Right.
Which is funny because I feel like it's one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life. And yet it's the one that most people leave to chance. And so I came into it leaving a lot of things to chance. I was working in television as a casting assistant, and I found that there were really talented actors that just didn't know what to do to get in my office or to get to see my boss or to get a part on our shows because they didn't have the right headshots. They weren't marketing themselves effectively. So I used to teach classes
This makes sense. Yeah, I
in
was like,
marketing
wait, yeah.
and audition techniques. And so it's clicking for you that basically a headshot is a dating profile photo and a first date is an
100%.
audition.
100%.
So I figured that out, and I applied what I was learning at work to my own dating experience. I ended up meeting my husband online many, many years ago. We've been married now 15 years.
What app was it?
Sweetheart, this is not even... You know how, like, you're like, people hadn't heard of Soul Swipe where you met Brian?
Yeah.
People really haven't heard of nerve.com. This is before apps. This is like a website.
Yeah, it wasn't even an app. It was a website, yeah.
It was a website. So it was kind of like, it's funny because I call it the OkCupid of its day, but now I work with OkCupid as their official dating coach. So everything is, I manifested this. It's all come full circle. And initially, I just started out writing dating profiles for people, but I found I was getting people on a lot of dates, and they were doing the same things that had made them unsuccessful in dating before. So I started to work with people throughout the entire process. I became certified as a life coach, and then specifically as a dating coach. And I really specialize in pre-date to pre-marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need some more degrees, like for married couples. I'm like, nah.
Right. That's a whole that's a whole thing.
The cost just went up. Like the
Right.
stakes are higher. No, I'm kidding. The stakes are always high, but I just really love. I have seen how much I have changed. My life has done a complete 180 from before I met my husband, and I was really kind of a cynic about love, and now I just feel like my life is full of so much possibility, and I want to share that with other people.
I love that because I love that you said that you were a cynic. Not that I love that you were a cynic, but like I was such a cynic. I think at one point we feel so helpless and we're just like, men ain't shit. You know what I mean? And you're just like, there's no, like, they're all so real out there. They only want sex. They don't even care about love. Like, you just get so like negative, towards that. But then like when you meet the right person and you heal yourself, it's like you realize,
Well, I will say the healing starts before you meet the person, right? Because like I started doing online dating and I was in my early 20s. That was not where people I thought like me were. And boss came to me at the time, and she was just so tired of seeing me, like, come in with bloodshot eyes from being up all night crying about another
Aw.
actor, writer, musician,
Oh my god, so LA, because how many times have we
right?
cried over a musician, an actor? Ugh.
I went to his gig, and then who is this bitch here? Like, I didn't know about her. Why we all at your gig and we all think we're your girlfriend? And suddenly I realized
So
I'm just a groupie.
oh my
Anyways,
god.
I had been doing that thing for a little while, and she was like, "I'm tired of the guys that you need to date. You need to go online. There's all these great guys." And I was like, "No, that's for weird people. Like,
Yeah,
that's
back in the
for."
day, online dating was a weird thing to do, and
It
now
was
it's
weird, but
so normal.
yes, it's true. I mean, we didn't even tell people that's how we met when we first met there. But when I got there, I realized, oh, this is a treasure trove of guys that really are better suited. Like, it's better than meeting someone out at a bar or, meeting an actor at work, because at least the people there, the barrier for entry was much higher then. And so
Mm.
all the people there were either paying money or had gone, like me, to scan their photos to go on the website.
You scanned.
Uh,
They put the effort.
you had to put in the effort. So it was a really different experience then. But I had gotten clear. I was actually working with a coach. I was also doing feng shui with another coach. And I'd gotten really clear on what I was looking for. And I even named it. I called my dating plan Operation DNG, short for Operation Date Nice Guys. And
Oh
all my
my
friends at work are like,
god.
how's Operation DNG going?
Wait, I love that.
But I got now I'm like, that was a little bit vague, but
Mm.
I really had gotten clear on what that would feel like and what that meant to me, so that then when I met the guy who's now my husband, I knew it felt different. I knew right away. This was not I
Right.
was dating another guy casually at the same time. I was like, "Oh, no, 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 not that guy. This guy. I need to lock it down." So,
Right.
there are still people, like, I hear all the time now, people are like, "Oh, the paradox of choice. There's too many options. Swipe, swipe,
Right.
swipe." But there are still people who want relationships. We're also seeing this on OkCupid coming out of the pandemic. People are much more relationship focused. And it's just a matter of putting in a process so you don't go crazy while you're going through the steps of finding love online or
Yeah.
offline.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, because back then, like you said, there's so much effort that like gets put into like making a profile, but nowadays it's so easy. And so, what are some kind of like tips? Because there are so many like people out there who are just looking for like instant gratification versus actually something long term. Like, what tips do you have for people to to present themselves, to market themselves in their casting profile, to able to um, get the right ones, attract the
Yeah.
right ones at least.
I like the way you brought that back to casting.
Yeah.
Casting yourself in your love story.
Yeah.
Well, it all starts first of all with clarifying what you want, because a lot of times people will say to me, "It is so easy to start to just be bored, have a glass of wine with your girlfriends, and then say, well, maybe I should try a dating app." And then you just throw a profile together. And I
Right.
know there are some people listening right now who are like, "Oh, she is giving me the read right now." Like,
There's been times where I just put up like the best selfies up there and like didn't even put that much like context in my profile because I was just like, this is too hard. It's too much work.
it
But
is
I was always
work.
getting shitty guys.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly my point. It is work. It is effort, but in the end, you get back what you put into it. So
Mm.
this is why I begin with the mindfulness and the clarity, so that you know how to devise the dating plan that's going to work for you. And if you feel like it's work, it's because like everything is kind of
Work.
everything's work today, right?
Yeah.
We have so many micro decisions that we have to make. So we get the benefit of our dating pool being expanded. Like the fact that I have many clients that have met and married someone that lived in another country. And that is possible because of online dating. But all of that possibility does come with a process that needs to be put around it. So you mentioned context. I'll give you my 3 C's, and these are the must
Okay.
haves in any dating profile. This is color, context, and character. Color, you see right now, I'm wearing a red shirt. I have a pink backdrop behind me. I
Yes.
have vibrant color. And you have to think of it from the point of view of not like this is me in my drunken state with my girlfriends throwing my 5 best selfies together. This
That
is
was my
me
profile.
thinking, look, we've all done it. We've all done it.
Yeah.
Except for me because I had to go to FedEx Kinko's to scan my
Yeah.
photos. But I've done it. I've had a lot of clients that
Right.
was their
I had a
experience.
drink in my hand. I always had a drink in my hand, you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so when you step back and you're like, okay, how do I want to tell my story? How am I going to appear to the people who are looking at the profile? Not just like, this is cute, I'm going to put this out here, but what am I saying? And so we think strategically. The color is the first step because as they're looking at a sea of little black dresses and like I promise you it's the same like 10 pictures again and again and again. Anything that will make someone stop and pay attention is good. And that's what in that first primary photo we're trying to do because people are just swiping through. They might not even be getting to your cute fourth, fifth, sixth photo because they're not getting past that primary photo that's making them stop and go further.
Right.
So, and the color red, studies have shown, Stefanie, I don't know if you've heard, that men are attracted, they're more attracted to the color red than any other color. I think it's a
My
biological conditioning. Yeah.
100%. My boyfriend loves the color red. Our curtains are red. And I'm like, this needs to go. 'Cause he
See,
just
I
loves
bet
red.
you were using the 3 C's and you
I was like,
you didn't
no.
even realize it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
It's
I'll
so
tell you
funny.
like the backstory. There was a study, I think it was at the University of Rochester, and they were showing men photos of women, and they all had different color borders around them. So they had red and green and blue, and then they had the men rate the women on attractiveness. And what the guys didn't realize is that as they're scanning through photo after photo after photo, similar to the way you would if you were swiping
Yeah.
on an app, they were rating the same women. Not like all the same picture, but they were rotating through
Right.
the same women. They just had different color borders. And they rated the women
Wow.
when their pictures had a red border as more attractive than they did when they had any other color. So that's a little hot tip for you
Interesting.
on the color.
So guys, wear red in your first profile picture.
But even, if there's any fellas listening that are like, what about me? Color works also for women. It's just red hasn't been studied in the same way or any, LGBTQ daters. It
Right.
color works universally. That's why, the pink selfie wall at Paul Smith in West Hollywood is a landmark. It's a landmark
Literally.
because we figured out. And I mean, even your art on your podcast, it stands out because of initially the color.
Yeah, and that was on purpose too,
That's
for sure.
strategic.
Strategic.
See, I like your strategery.
I love that.
So color and then context is the
Okay.
second one. And that's like telling your story through your photos. And the third C is character. That's the one most people miss. This is like showing your personality. You don't have a problem with this, but like some folks, are a little shy about showing their boldness, their quirkiness, their nerdiness, their whatever makes them unique. And that's usually the picture that will get someone to take action and message you. And it's not Instagram. We're not looking for likes. We're looking for engagement and action.
I love that. That's like really powerful because I didn't follow any of those. I was just like, what do I look good in? And I think sometimes I would put little like funny remarks on like my profiles, but that was it. But I got to a point where it was just so like it was just so overbearing to be on it. Like I think that I remember feeling like times like it made me anxious to be on like those apps sometimes because it was just so much. So what advice do you kind of give for those who like feel that way of just like the anxiety of dating and like just overwhelmed with, not to be like, oh my God, I have all these messages, but just even getting like 2 messages is a lot, you know what I mean? Like having to respond to people and talk to people. Like what advice do you have for those who are, hate that kind of side of dating online?
Yeah, it's funny because before the pandemic, all anyone ever wanted to talk about was dating burnout and like that panic and overwhelm.
Mhm.
And then it was weird for a little while. The narrative changed, and people were like, I really want to connect. And as many people, and because of virtual dating, and we can talk about how virtual dating fits into it, but because of virtual dating, then people were stacking dates like
Yeah.
3 a night.
Right.
And then after a while, then the burnout started to come back. So the best advice that I can give is to have a plan. Like I was saying earlier, we want to give folks the benefit of the doubt, and we let so many people like clear our filter, or we forget our boundaries
Right.
because we're like, oh, but he's really cute and I like,
Yeah.
he has a picture in Italy and I want to go to Italy, so I'm going to swipe right. And it ultimately, those are the kind of decisions that get you into overwhelm. And the other thing is texting. We got to talk
Yeah,
about
I hate
texting.
I hate texting. I hate it so much. Like, I'm just not a texter. Like, I rather FaceTime. I rather do a podcast. Like, I rather just talk, you know? And so the
Yeah.
texting part was very difficult for me. And I think that's where I used to fail a lot because I don't know, it was hard. So what advice do you have, just in that kind of realm of like how long should we be texting each other before we meet for a date? Like what's the right way of doing
Not
it?
that long. Yeah,
Yeah.
not that long. And you probably experience this too. Like when you are texting someone back and forth for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then they're starting to send you good morning text and like, hey babe, how's your day? And you're like, dude, I haven't even met you. And
Right.
and now we've almost bypassed the courtship phase, and we're moving into a relationship, and we haven't even done the basic get to know you. So
Right.
there's something psychologists call the online disinhibition effect. A lot of times it's used in relation to, like all those crappy comments that you get where you're like, I wish this person would just go away. Like the
Right.
trolling on the internet. That's also applies when we're texting someone that we've met on a dating app and we don't really know them. And so our inhibition of like, maybe I shouldn't say that, maybe I shouldn't send that, maybe I shouldn't post that,
Mhm.
is lowered because they're just a person, they're just a name and a screen. And we'll send things, we'll be more intimate, we'll reveal things about ourselves that we never would say if we were face to face with
Right.
that person. And it really erodes the evolution of the relationship. And then it also just like takes the air out of the conversation. Then if or when you finally meet, where's the magic? Where's the spark? Because you talked about everything.
I agree. I was always actually I maybe I did that right when I was dating because I would message them and then just kind of text here and there, but I just knew at one point I just knew that like I was just not good at this. I'd be like, "Okay, so I would kind of hint like when to take me out and stuff like that." So that like I needed to go on a date quickly. I didn't want to keep messaging and
I have a
yeah.
question for you and how you handled that, because sometimes I'll give someone advice like on my podcast Dates and Mates. I'll say you need to like move it forward to the date
Mhm.
or cut it off. And sometimes people interpret it very literally, and then it becomes kind of rude. Like they're just like, "So what's going on? Are we going out or not?" So I'm curious if you have language that you used to sort of nudge
A date.
flirtatiously.
Yeah. I think I would just honestly I'm trying to think back because this was pre-pandemic, but I do remember just being kind of forward, like sometimes I would ask them. Like I never, or like if and it wouldn't be like, let me take you on a date. It wasn't something formal. It was just like, oh, like we should like hang out sometime. Like very like casual. Like just I would be really straight up, honestly. I think I got to a point where I was so tired of just like trying to be like hinting that I was honest. Um so yeah, that's what I did. But sometimes I feel like I think I like rushed into dates just for the sake of having a date. So that I'd always end up being on these first dates with guys. I'm like, why am I here right now? But
Yeah. And that's where the virtual date comes in. And this is the like one of the few things from the
Yeah.
pandemic that I hope remains. Because for the longest time, I've always had my clients, I like doing a phone call. It's kind of old fashioned and cute. And
Right?
right, you get enough information to say, should I see this person or should I not see this person? And it
Yeah.
still leaves a little bit of mystery. It's kind of escalating it slowly. But I feel like since the pandemic and everyone got really comfortable with video, I'm not sure how how many you'll be able to roll back to a phone call because then it almost feels like you've demoted them.
That's true.
But if we can incorporate the video date back in as sort of like a checkout, not like a substitute for the date, but as an in-between step, it would save you a lot of lipstick and a
For
lot of
sure.
time, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think it reduces is ghosting. It's not like when people ghost later down the road, but I was seeing a lot of prior to the pandemic, I was seeing a lot of people getting stood up on dates, being ghosted, like being canceled on like an hour before. It even happened.
Mm.
I'm on the Drew Barrymore show as her like official love
Shout out to
expert.
Drew Barrymore. I
Shout
fucking
out
love
to
her.
she's amazing. I
Yeah.
I love working with her. But it even happened to her, Stephanie. Like
What? To Drew
she
Barrymore?
yeah, she was on a dating app. Not my dating app. She was on a dating app and yeah, she had a guy cancel like right before the date. And I was like, who cancels on Drew Barrymore? I think he was probably just like so nervous.
He's
He
probably,
probably
I
thought
would
she
be
was a catfish.
right.
Probably.
I was gonna
I don't
say,
know.
because I was like, if I had like booked a date with Drew Barrymore, I'd be like, is this real? Or if it is real, like I'd be nervous, but
But would she just go to show
I would
up
just
and
go.
just
I would
see?
just go. I would just go to
What?
show up and like send my location to my friends and be like, make sure, that it's not a catfish and it actually is Drew Barrymore.
I'm not murdered by a Drew Barrymore lookalike. Yeah.
Right, exactly,
I
exactly.
know. So it's happening. It happens to everyone, but I do find that doing that screening step in between, whether it's a phone call, video chat, some kind of a check-in, can help you know if this person is worth spending an hour with. And that's another key element of my dating
Yes,
program.
I agree, but I actually have a friend who like is kind of not entirely for that. She's not, well, I wouldn't say she's not. She's just kind of uncertain because she feels like sometimes guys use it as a cheap way to not take them out on a date.
Great. I agree, and I think that's great. Because do you
Yeah.
want to go out with that guy? Do you did
That's
you want to
true.
spend an hour with that guy? If you're gonna look at me and judge me from my FaceTime now, and also I mean, it is your first impression,
Right.
so like kind of show up like you care.
Right, right,
Right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is the problem is that it got so casual and you forget that it's actually very intimate. You're inviting someone into your space.
Mhm.
Everything that's in the background is part of their impression of you. So just try, but just be natural. But
Right.
if they blow you off after that, like I say, you know, rejection's your protection. So
Exactly, like, you should.
if
I agree, 100%. I 100% agree. But I do see that
yeah.
as, like, sometimes guys will, but at the same time, I'm like, as someone who, I feel like as being in my 30s now, I look at it as like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want them to, like, waste money and time on, you know what I mean? If I was a guy, if I didn't wanna waste money and time with someone, like, I'm not gonna do it, you know? So, I'm gonna be
They just
very it is
saved you money and time as
right.
well, because if
But I
you're gonna
guess it
be like that.
right, but I guess maybe it looks makes some people look cheap. I don't know. Like, is it a cheap thing? Is it a cheap way? I don't know, but
Here's what I have found, and I've been doing this for a minute. I do find that women can grow into attraction, but
mhm.
usually, like, if one of my male clients does not have an immediate physical connection, like, he's not at the end of the first date, like, "Huh."
Mhm.
It's really a lot harder, I find, for things to evolve from there.
That's
They
true, because
say
we do tend to be, like, a little bit more open-minded as women to be like, "Oh, like, maybe if we just give him a chance and then it will grow," but guys are kind of a little bit it's a little harder, I think.
They're very visual. Like they say,
Yeah.
men fall in love with their eyes, women fall in love between their ears.
That's
So
so true.
where it's all up here for us. And there's so much that goes into feminine arousal. I know you talk about, you talk about stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
it's more than just the physical. So if a guy like takes a look at you and is like, I don't know if I want to take her out. Look, we're spending way too much time on first dates was the point I was about to make is like,
Yeah.
whoa, 90 minutes tops is all you really need for meeting someone from online. But um that
Eh,
investment shouldn't be that high.
yeah, yeah. There was one
So
time I was on a date for like probably 45 minutes max. It was like I went and I just could tell like he was nervous or something. Something was really off and I just did not. I just was like I lost all attraction to, and he was nice. It wasn't like he was a dick. It was just like I don't know, it was just really nerdy and I think it just turned me I wasn't ready for that at that time. I wasn't ready for a nice guy. And so I remember I ate my crepe and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so tired. I have to like go back home, and he was like really hurt by that. And I remember he kind of it was like he kind of would keep like hitting me up afterwards and I would keep ghosting him. Like I wouldn't even respond but he would still try. And
yeah. Eeh.
and then one day I was like, I have a boyfriend, even though I didn't, but I was like, I have a boyfriend. But it was weird. I don't know. Um
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame a guy for trying, but like if we could all just like it sounds like you were being pretty direct with him. So, what I'm trying to encourage people to do is to date both with more clarity and like speaking a lot of the anxiety of dating comes from us not being authentic, not being upfront about what we're thinking and feeling, but also with coming from a perspective of empathy is what I hope we can all
mm,
adopt because it's become so transactional of just like, I'm flipping through a catalog of men
right.
here. If
Yeah.
if you can kind of I tell my clients to thank and release, kind of like Marie Kondo. Like if it's not your person, you thank them, but with clarity and with empathy. Like, I this crepe is great. This has been a really interesting conversation. I don't feel like it's a love match for me. I don't feel like I'm not
Yeah.
feeling like I'm not feeling it's that this is
A
a
connection.
good fit
Yeah.
for us. Yeah, connection. But thank you. Thank you for your time. Like, thank you. And I really hope you find what you're looking for. And
I
I
feel like
find
that's
like
so
sometimes you
scary
can't say
though.
it.
That's so scary to say.
It's
Like
o
what
it's only scary when you haven't done it, honestly, because most of the people like, people will say that to me, like, "Oh, I don't know how to do that," because 'cause we're not
Yeah.
doing it. We're not being upfront and authentic, and then as soon as you start doing it, you're like, "Oh, that feels a lot better," and then this guy isn't still texting me every morning, like, holding out hope that we're actually going to see each other again, and most of the time, like, you are gonna meet those assholes that are like, "Well, fuck you, bitch." Like
Right. And that's I think that's also like a scary thing too, is like I don't want to ever hurt someone's feelings, let alone like I don't know how they're gonna react because they're a stranger,
Sure.
So there is this like fear. I think especially as a woman, like and I'm out here like at night with some guy, it's like sometimes there is fear. But
Obviously, yes. Obviously, read the situation. And I mean,
right.
you should only be meeting people that from dating apps in public places. Like you said, send your location to your like that is just baseline. Like like
Yeah.
I was doing that even when I was dating nice guys in Operation Date Nice Guys. But that's baseline. You've gotta take care of your safety first. And so if it
Yeah.
doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't feel safe, it doesn't feel right to tell them in the moment, then text them when you get home. But, like, if you leave the door open, they'll keep pushing it open.
Right.
And I find that 90% of the guys, like, when I encourage clients to do this, they'll say, "Wow, this guy said to me, 'Thank you so much. I really appreciate knowing. It was good. It was nice knowing you, and I appreciate the clarity because they're not getting any clarity. And this is why we're so overwhelmed because we're keeping all of these
That's
threads open."
true. That's so true. Like,
Mhm.
we're not being real with one another, and we're not being respectful towards like people's time and like, the clarity and all of that. So one time, let me tell you this really interesting date story, and I kind of want to know like your take on it because it's still kind of a mystery to me sometimes. Like, how did this fall apart? So one time, this was like 2019, and I was on, I was scrolling through, swiping through, and I matched up with this guy, and we had good like banter back and forth on the app, and so I was like, okay, let's hang out. So we decided to hang out that night, and we met up at a bar, and I just noticed like I was being myself, which is like very chatty, very like asking questions, like getting to know him. Like I've been on plenty of first dates. I know how to act. And so but I just noticed that his kind of demeanor was very like boring, and I don't know if it was like he was just very uninterested or he just maybe thought I was annoying. I wasn't quite sure, but I just felt like but then he still wanted to hang out and was like, "Oh, let's go to the second bar." So we get into his car and we're driving to the second bar, and then maybe this is actually, yeah, this is where it went wrong. I was just making a joke about how because before every first date, I like Google my dates just to make sure, like, they're not
Mhm.
crazy. And so I was telling him about it. And then I told him how there was somebody with his name that was a sex offender in, I believe, Massachusetts or something like that. But it wasn't him because I like matched the photos, but I thought it was like funny. And so he didn't think that was funny and was just kind of like, he was like, "Okay." He's like, so I think it's time to like go home." And I'm like, "What do you mean we're going to the bar?" And he's like, "Maybe you could be like Cinderella and just get home at midnight," which is a weird comment to say. And I was like, "Well, I don't want you to drive me home. Like, just like, just pull out. Like, I'll just fucking call him like a Lyft. Just like drop me off right here." And he's like, "All right, fine," and dropped him off in like the middle of Hollywood.
What?
And then that was our date.
Wow.
And I had no idea. Like, it was just this weird thing that I've always kind of looked back at. I'm like, I made a joke, and maybe it was like a weird joke to kind of be like, well, someone with the same name is a sex offender. But he just got so like, he just was so over it and so over me that he was like, just dropped me off in the middle of like Hollywood Boulevard.
Okay, that is tacky of him, first of
Yeah.
all. I gotta tell you though, you actually broke 2 of my rules and you don't even know.
What did I do?
We don't go to second locations on a first
Okay.
date, and we don't get in a car with the dude that we don't know. So those are 2 cardinal rules because it
You're right.
keeps right, safety, and it also keeps the interaction like cuz usually when we're going to a second location, we've already had plenty to drink. Our inhibitions are down, and then we're having more to drink. And usually, so we want the energy of a date to feel like it's ending in the middle. And
Okay.
that, because we usually will remember the beginning of a date and end of the date. Like if you think of when you met Brian, like
Mhm.
what do you remember most about the moment, like the day you met Brian?
Um, how nervous he was, but it was really cute.
So you probably remember he was probably nervous from the beginning. So you probably
Yeah.
remember that like first moment. Like I
Yeah.
remember exactly what my husband was wearing the minute I saw him at my first impressions, and I remember how we ended the date. I could not tell you. I couldn't I actually couldn't tell you one topic we talked about. Everybody's always asking me like, "What are the best first date conversations?" I'm like, "It really doesn't matter. It's so much
Yeah.
more about the vibe and about whether you can keep the conversation going with one another." But
That's
when
true.
we
Because I
stay
definitely
so
wanted,
long.
yeah. Yeah. No, you go ahead.
No, I wanna hear what you come on.
No, because I just remember just being like, oh, I didn't want to leave. Like with
Yeah.
Brian now, I definitely didn't want to leave. Like we were listening to music and he had to like, it's kind of a situation because he like drove from Fresno to LA, then he had to drive back to the Bay Area. So we
Mhm.
only had like a limited amount of time, but we definitely, had a great time in that small frame of time. But you're right,
Yeah,
kind of
and
did leave it like in
even
the middle, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So that energy felt like there was something more to be discovered, but a lot of times when you're staying, 3 hours on a dinner date and then going to a second location, not saying that that's what you did on this date, but this is what a lot of folks do
Right.
because we don't want the energy to end, then the energy dips. And then what we remember is we kind of ran out of things to talk about. Like, oh, it was good vibes for a while, but then it kind of started to feel awkward because we don't know that
Mine,
person yet.
right.
Aha moment.
I just reflected back to like all of my dates that like were way too long and were like I went home with
Yeah.
him. So what are your thoughts on like going like sleeping on the first date?
Look, you're grown. You can do
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. So I'm not, and look, I'm sex positive. Like I'm not
Yeah.
going to, definitely not the dating coach to shame anyone for having sex on the first date. But most people listen to Dates and Mates because they want a relationship. So the advice that I give is mostly relationship focused. And people will always say, well, but my friend, she had sex on the first date with this guy and now they've been married and they have a kid and da, da, da. And that's great for your friend. But I'm going to teach the
Right.
rule and not the exception. And that's the exception. So over my 15 plus years of doing this, usually you'd want to delay having sex because you are still in that slow love getting to know you phase. So the same way that we're built leaving anticipation, leaving more to be discovered after the first date, we were
Mhm.
leaving more to be discovered because once you have sex, like you can't go backwards. Like
You
that
can't. Yeah.
magic moment is gone and you can find ways to spice it up, but it kind of becomes the default. So why
Oh, you're
not
so right.
retain that magic for as long as you have it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree for sure. I mean, because I've definitely, or like I would, here's the thing that's very common, and you probably have heard this too, is like the first date's like, okay, you meet somewhere, restaurant, bar, or whatever it is, and then the second date's at their place. What are your thoughts on that?
Not in my program, honey. No. And here's the thing, like if you set yourself up for success. So if you know like you've already made a decision. I have my clients like pre-decide how much are they going to drink? How are they going to get home? I have them have an exit strategy before they even get into the date. So it's not weird like, oh, I need to get home and all of a
Mm,
sudden they're feeling like you just left. And by the same token, if you've decided, I don't want to sleep with this person right away, I'm interested in a relationship, I want to get to know them, I want to build the anticipation, don't put yourself in the situation where you're going to be forced with having to make a decision again. So if you're already at their place, then you're like, I made this decision. We weren't going to have sex, but now I'm here.
and you're
And
feeling frisky, you've had a
I'm feeling
glass of
frisky.
wine, and he's playing some good music, and then your panties
Yeah.
are off, and then you can't control it.
And once the panties are off,
Flashbacks.
girl, forget it,
Flashbacks.
right? I know. I believe me, I have been there. And I know how some of those stories end. And there are exceptions, but in general, like in general, and this is talking for, hetero dating, the
Mm.
woman paces the relationship. You pace it. And there are people that are like, oh, well, I won't have sex for whatever. Steve Harvey says like 90 days or
Oh
something.
my, oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
there is a point where guys are like, I'm not going to wait forever. But
Right.
it's not a manipulative thing. It's that you're having different kinds of conversations and getting to know each other on a different level and then building that into anticipation so that when it's time, it's really great. And then there are people that are like, "Oh, but what if we sleep together and the sex is not good at that point?" And I just think usually at that point, if you've built the bond, a lot of the logistics like sex there are things that you can do to improve your sexual experience together if they're willing to work on it.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
you can't improve like their communication. You can't improve feeling safe with them. That's not
Right.
if you don't have that in like the first, month or two before you have sex, like that's not going to magically unfold. So that to me is the bigger question, the more important question to answer.
Okay. So what happens if, like, let's say you said, "Okay, I know we're not supposed to, but oops, I had sex." Like,
Don't
what?
panic.
Okay, like, and you're like, "Wait, but I really
Don't
like
panic.
them, and I already like, I had sex with them on the first date," and then you start getting into your mind, like, what do you do from there to kind of, like, salvage it or, you know?
Don't get weird. Don't panic.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
I'm
okay.
over here, like, getting anxious.
You're getting anxious, like, for your listeners.
And for my
You
past self,
care, it's so sweet.
I know, I always think of, like, my past like, I feel like my listeners are, like, my younger self, so I always feel like they're, like, my little sister in a way, so it's like, I will feel, like, the anxiety and, like, the frustration sometimes when I talk about it, I'm like it, like, rewinds back to, like, that feeling when I'm like, "Wait, no, I'm here now, I'm in a happy relationship."
Yeah, you're okay, you're
No
okay.
reason to
You're a
stress.
flashback.
Yes.
Okay, so don't panic. Everything is figure outable, but you have to also you remember you're pacing the relationship. So a lot of times once that threshold's been crossed, it's just like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever. Like, let's start the date, I guess, at his place next time." And you have to remember you can always reestablish boundaries that are important to you. Like, you might not decide that it's important to not have sex again for another few dates.
Mm,
You set what feels comfortable for you, but you also like you've already taken kind of the chase away. And the other thing that happens biologically is that when you have sex with someone, oxytocin is released. That's the bonding hormone. So
mm,
now you're starting to think about them. You're starting to feel infatuated. You're starting to wonder when their texts are coming through and like, why did he wait that long? And then what did that mean? And he said this, but he didn't use an emoji, but last time he did. And then we start to whip ourselves up. So
yeah.
you have to really like take what is coming at face value. Half the questions I get on my podcast are like people saying, I don't know what he means. Like, I can't tell what he means. And I'm like, you mean like the fact that he didn't call and he was being inconsistent, or that he said to you he just wanted to be friends? Like, he said what he meant.
Yeah.
We just didn't want to hear it because it doesn't
Yeah.
align with what our hopes and dreams and expectations are. But I assure you, there were many that got away in my dating experience. And what was awaiting me on the other side of those no's was an even bigger yes from somebody that's an even better match for me. So try not to get too caught up in the outcome. Like, we're always,
Right.
anxiety comes from ruminating about the past or projecting into the future. And if you can
Exactly.
kind of get yourself back to the present, right? It's a lot
It's always a
easier
battle
to manage.
for sure.
Always.
Like, so for you, how do you know, like, so, you help people get a match and to find love. Like, how do you define love in your own way? Like, how do you know that it's real and it's something that is long lasting?
Asking for a friend, right?
Asking for a friend. No. I mean, I know the answer. Like, I feel like but I feel like coming from an expert, I'm sure people come to you all the time, like, how to, yeah, they come to you all the time to how to find love and stuff. So when they finally get to that point, how do they know?
When you
Just
know,
for
you
those who
know.
haven't found, right.
If you know, you know. And honestly, I know it sounds corny, if you know, you know, but you'll just have to take my word for it from having been through it. When we have a lot of insecurity and we're not sure, a lot of times that's a sign that we're not really taking in what's really happening. But really, I as I said earlier, I believe in slow love. I think we're in so much of a rush to get to the ending of our fairy tale love story
Mm,
that we're missing the juicy middle. And that's when everything is being revealed to you. And that's when you're really having fun, like revealing yourself and being vulnerable and open with someone. So there's no timeline on which it happens. Like for me, we were pretty young. My husband and I dated for almost 4 years before we got married. I have many clients who, like, came to me focused, like, I gotta pop a baby out before
Mm.
39. Like, I just got divorced, and I'm not trying to be on this dating scene long, or whatever it was, or just, like, I've decided this is what I want in my life. And once they have that clarity, and once they go through some of this mindset stuff that I do in my program, when you're sitting across from that person, and that feeling that you want to feel is reflected back to you. And if you've taken the time to set that that plan in place, and then to let the relationship unfold. Like, I have a client that they just had their daughter just turned 2, and she'd been divorced after she had like a 6-month marriage. She was so discouraged. She'd been online, she'd been offline. She wanted to have kids. She was with this guy that was like, "I think I could have kids with you." And I was like, it's not a I think
I
kind of
think, yeah,
situation. I have 2
right.
of them. It's you're either in or you're out, okay?
You're right.
And, like, we started for the new year. She wanted to start fresh. We redid her profile. Sometimes it's just a matter of, like, changing a few things in your dating profile. We did a
Mhm.
profile refresh. She met a guy by March. So we started in January. She met a guy by March. They moved in together by July. By September, they were engaged. And by the next March, they were married. And 2 years later, they had a baby. So it can
Love
literally happen
that.
that fast. And there
Yeah.
was no question in her mind. It's funny because when she had gotten married, she told me that, like, as soon as she got married, she was like, "I made a mistake." Like, she knew in her heart that that wasn't the right marriage for her, but she continued on that path because of what everybody else's expectations
Mhm.
were, because she
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I'm 30 whatever, and so I should be married by now." And he's right on paper, and her heart was telling her that was not the right choice. So look, she followed what her gut was telling her, and now she's in a beautiful relationship and happy
I
fast.
love that.
Yeah.
That is so sweet. Yeah,
And they
like,
did not
I
have sex on the first date.
uh,
I think maybe the
that
second,
backs
though.
you it's like you could do it early, but maybe not on the first date, you know?
You
It's
can
all
do
good.
whatever you wanna do.
Yeah,
You a grown woman.
exactly. But just know what the consequences are if you do decide that, I guess.
Well, I mean, since you brought up consequences, we also I mean, I'm really curious, Stephanie, to see how the changes in the laws are really going to affect dating, because the consequences, hate to tell ya, in a lot of states are pretty high now.
Exactly. It's not just like an oopsie daisy consequence. It's something that it's like affects a lot of people's lives. So,
Sincerely. So,
yeah,
what I tell my clients is, until you can have an adult conversation, like, you feel comfortable enough to have an adult conversation about the consequences of sex and STIs and babies and whatever else that
mhm,
may mean,
mhm.
then you're maybe not ready to have sex with that person.
That's very true. Because my
Yeah.
last relationship before my boyfriend now was in a year-long relationship, and we actually never had sex. Because half of the time
What?
he was in LA and half of the time he moved to Alabama. So, but I just knew, like, I was in love with him, but I knew in my heart, because I already went through, like, my whole dating experience, I just knew how attached I would get if I had sex with them.
Mhm.
And because I knew in my heart, like, okay, I love this man, but I don't understand, like, why I don't s- I understand why I don't see a future, but it's like, why am I with someone that I don't see a future with, but I love so much, you know? And so, like, kind of holding off on sex was something that, like, I needed to do, because I knew that, like, if I had sex with him, it would just make it harder to leave, because I knew it
Mm.
was gonna end. So,
How
but
did
I,
he react to that? Like, you
um,
know.
he respected it, actually. Like, he was kind of an asshole, but I think in that aspect, like, he respected that, because I think he also knew too that he wasn't gonna be there long term.
Mm.
So it was, and also, like, he's one of those, like, he's one of those guys, like, if I got pregnant, he's like, he said, because I told him, I was like, I would abort it. trigger warning, sorry guys. And then he was like, oh, if you abort my kid, like I would leave you. Like I'd never want any of my kids to be like aborted. So obviously we had different values on that. So
Yeah.
I think that was like my biggest, also a next thing too, because I was like, he is someone who's just gonna slip up and just come right inside of me, and I will be pregnant and have to move to Alabama. And I was like thinking all these things. I was like, no. And so, but yeah, so yeah, that I think that was a sign for me that like I kind of matured, because after him, that's when I met my boyfriend now that I see myself spending the rest of my life with. But it was a whole thing.
Values are really important, and that's like a perfect example of figuring out that you're not aligned on values, because people get confused. They get confused about the list. People come to me with a
Mhm.
list a mile long, and I'm like, none of these things tell me anything about who this person is. But finding out truly what they believe and what their values are and whether or not they're aligned. And then I love how you played it forward. Like, what does this look like? If this happens, what does my life look like? If that happens, what does my life look like? And if you play it forward and you're like, I don't want
Like, I
that
don't want to move to
life.
Alabama. I don't want to move to Alabama. No shade to Alabama, but I was like, no.
No, if
Yeah.
that's not the life you want, it's just not what you wanted. If that's not the life that you want, like that is the answer. We just have to be better at like hearing the answer inside internally and acting on it. But, it's
Yeah.
hard, like you said, it's hard when your emotions and your expectations are overlaid on the situation too.
Right, right. When you're like so in love, but you're like, this man ain't shit. Why am I here? But sorry, no
I
shade. That
do.
was shady. But well,
That's what we're here for.
exactly. That's why we do this. Well, I love this conversation, and I feel like you've really just gave so much knowledge to just in dating in general and relationships. Like I always said, like love was never like a feeling that was supposed to be like this fireworks and amazing. Like yeah, like that's there, that happens, but like it's really just about like the feeling of safety, and like you just know when you know, and there's really no thing to like kind of explain it, and it's just, and you could see a future with them, and it's not just you know for the night, so
Yeah, slow love is definitely the answer. And I do really feel like the pandemic was clarifying for a lot of people and how we
mhm.
really want to live our life and what life we're building. And as I said at the beginning of this conversation, who you choose to spend your life with is it affects everything else. It affects your finances, your mental health, your family. It affects every other decision that you might make. So why not make that choice mindfully? And I'm really seeing also from the OkCupid data that people are coming out of this pandemic with more clarity. Like people are dating against type. Like 95% of daters said they're open to dating someone who isn't their usual type. I'm so over the type. I'm so glad about this. People are talking about mental health,
Mm.
and people are saying like they want to date someone who is in therapy. This is fine, fantastic. Traditional gender roles are out. Like since the beginning of my dating coaching experience, I'm like, let's get over these gender
Gender
roles. Like
roles, yeah,
we're
100%.
we're dating based on like old fashioned rules, and we're doing everything in our lives modern. But then we're like, oh, he's gotta like be the breadwinner and open the door and whatever. But also, I want to be a
Right.
boss bitch. But also, it's like, let's be open to writing the rules of our own love story and the life that we want.
I was like, I loved writing the rules. It just sounds so romantic. I'm like, yes.
See, from cynic to optimist in love.
Yes, I love that. Well, where can everyone find you? And if they want to work with you, like, where can they, stalk you and lurk you?
Please stalk me. Please send me your questions. I'm at Damona Hoffman on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Working on TikTok, girl. Working on it. But I am there. I am there. And Dates and Mates. Dates and Mates is my podcast. We are launching season 10 this fall.
Season,
And
woo!
10.
Congrats.
I
I
know.
know
I know
how
you've been in
that's
the
a lot of
game for a
work.
minute.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I know
Yep.
all that. How that much,
Seasons
yeah.
meaning years of my
Yeah.
life.
Woo, my
But it is
headphones just
really
fell out. There you go. I was like, wait.
Was I too loud? It's just like,
No. Good.
but it's a labor of love, no pun intended. So that is really where I do my favorite work, and then where people can find out about the programs that I offer. I do have like a little profile starter kit that is on my website. It's free right
Oh,
now.
amazing.
At datesandmates.com or damonahoffman.com. So if you're like, what do I put in my profile? I got you. I got you. Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to talk with you.
It was so much fun. And you guys follow me, Stefanie Maegan, or go to brokewiththerapy.com. All that shit is there. Thank you, Damona, for shining light on love and making it just sound so much fun and not like dreading. So thank you.
Thank you.
Broke Girl Therapy.